It is a quiet morning in a laboratory at the University of California, San Diego. A young woman sits before a keyboard, headphones on, eyes closed. A single note sounds. Without hesitation, she names it. Not because she has trained for years, but because she grew up speaking Mandarin. The phenomenon she demonstrates is called absolute pitch, the rare ability to identify any musical note without a reference tone. In most populations, it appears in roughly 1 in 10,000 people. But among native speakers of tonal languages like Mandarin, the rate climbs dramatically. Something about the language itself seems to reshape the ear. The researcher behind much of this work is Diana Deutsch, a psychologist and musician who has spent decades studying how the brain processes sound. In the early 2000s, she began a series of experiments comparing music students in the United States with those at the Central Conservatory of Music in Beijing. What she found overturned conventional wisdom. Absolute pitch, it seemed, was not simply a gift of genetics. Among the Beijing students who had begun musical training before the age of 5, roughly 6 in 10 possessed absolute pitch. Among their American counterparts, the figure was closer to 1 in 7. The gap was too vast to explain by chance. Deutsch proposed a radical idea. Tonal language, absorbed in infancy, was priming the brain to treat pitch as meaningful information. To understand why, one must first understand Mandarin itself. The language has 4 main tones, each rising, falling, or holding steady across a single syllable. The word ma, spoken with a high-level tone, means mother. Spoken with a falling tone, it becomes a scolding. A shift in pitch is not decoration, it is meaning itself. For a Mandarin-speaking infant, learning to talk means learning to hear pitch with precision. Every conversation becomes an exercise in fine auditory discrimination. The neural circuits that process frequency are exercised thousands of times a day, from the first months of life. By the time the child speaks a full sentence, those circuits are already deeply wired. Deutsch went further. She recorded native Mandarin speakers repeating the same word on different days. The pitch at which they produced it was remarkably consistent, as if each syllable carried its own musical address. Their speech was, in a quiet way, already a kind of song. In non-tonal languages like English, pitch operates differently. It carries emotion, emphasis, and questioning intent, but not lexical meaning. An English-speaking child learns that a rising tone at the end of a sentence signals a question. But the child does not learn that a specific frequency distinguishes one noun from another. The ear develops different priorities. This divergence has consequences that extend far beyond the laboratory. Consider the experience of listening to music. For a Mandarin speaker with absolute pitch, a melody is not simply a shape rising and falling in space. It is a sequence of named entities, each note as recognizable as a letter of the alphabet. For most Western listeners, music is heard in relative terms. A tune is recognized by the intervals between notes, not by the notes themselves. Transpose Happy Birthday into any key, and it remains the same song. But for a listener with absolute pitch, transposition can feel jarring, like a familiar word suddenly spelled with different letters. The critical period for this shaping appears to close early. Deutsch's data suggested that musical training beginning after the age of 9 rarely produced absolute pitch, regardless of the student's linguistic background. The window in which pitch becomes a native language of the ear is narrow. It opens at birth and begins to close before most children can read. Other researchers have expanded the picture. Studies at Northwestern University, led by neuroscientist Nina Kraus, examined the brainstem responses of Mandarin speakers and English speakers to musical sounds. The Mandarin group showed sharper, more accurate neural encoding of pitch, even in the earliest stages of auditory processing. The advantage was not just cognitive, it was physiological. This finding was striking. The brainstem is not usually considered a seat of learning. It is ancient, automatic, evolutionarily conservative. Yet in Mandarin speakers, it had been retuned by years of tonal listening. Language had reached down into the oldest layers of the auditory system and reshaped them. The implications ripple outward. Musicians who grew up speaking Mandarin, Cantonese, Vietnamese, or Thai often display an enhanced sensitivity to fine pitch variation. Some conservatories in East Asia have noted that students arrive with an ear already partly trained. The instrument has been tuned by the mother tongue, but the story is not one of simple advantage. Absolute pitch can complicate certain kinds of musical understanding. Players who name every note may struggle to hear the deeper harmonic relationships that give Western music its emotional weight. Perception, like all evolutionary adaptations, is a trade-off. What is gained in precision may be lost in flexibility. There is also the question of what happens when tonal language is lost. Children of immigrant families who abandon Mandarin in early childhood often lose the perceptual edge that would have come with fluency. The neural circuits, unused, drift toward other tasks. The ear that might have been remains, in a sense, unwritten. For linguists and neuroscientists, these findings offer a rare window into a larger question. How does culture become biology? How do the sounds a society makes shape the brains of its children? Mandarin, spoken by more than 1 billion people, provides a natural experiment on a planetary scale. Its answers are still being gathered. For musicians, the lesson is more practical. Early exposure matters. The years before school are not preparation for learning, they are learning itself at its most profound. A child who hears pitch as meaning will hear music as meaning, long before a single lesson begins. And for the rest of us, there is a quieter revelation. Two people can sit in the same concert hall, listening to the same symphony, and hear genuinely different things. The notes are the same. The vibrations in the air are identical. But the ears that receive them have been shaped by different histories, different words, different worlds. Back in the San Diego laboratory, the young woman opens her eyes. She has named every note correctly. She smiles almost apologetically, as if it were nothing. And in a sense, for her, it is nothing. It is simply the sound of her mother tongue, echoing in a room full of music.